I am actually going to do the swing. Hello, and welcome to Waves with Factory Berlin and beats by Dr. Dre. My name is Kikelomo, and I'm joined here by the lovely Nick.
Hello.
And yeah, we're very excited to bring you this episode of Waves today. Yeah, maybe I guess I can. We have never really met each other before, but I already feel a bond between us. But I guess you guys may not know who we are, so I guess we can introduce ourselves. Or maybe I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself.
Sure.
Maybe.
So my name is Nick Tsirimokos, and I am a senior manager of artist relations at SoundCloud. I'm saying it like I'm in a panel, and I'm like senior manager of artist relations at SoundCloud. I'm also a producer and I'm composer of like neoclassical-ish kind of music. I run like a little tiny queer label, and I also co-founded a platform with a friend of mine that like amplifies underrepresented artists and people within the industry. And I think that's it. I mean, I like ambient music and experimental music and classical music, and I'm a bit of a nerd at heart.
Yeah, me too.
Tell me about yourself.
Yeah, okay, cool. So I am a DJ. I've been DJing for about, it's going to be 4 years in September, so I consider myself still pretty fresh to the game. I'm also an aspiring producer. I actually have quite a lot of tracks that I've made, but I'm just way too scared to release them. I'm a host, I'm a presenter for Boiler Room as well. I have my own radio show. I've worked with various collectives around Berlin, promoting diversity inclusion, particularly for marginalized identities in the music scene, electronic music scene, through kind of empowerment programs with DJing, and mentorships, and I'm also working in the music tech industry, also as a co-chair of the Diversity and Inclusion Working Group for the Association of Electronic Music. So a lot of
wow,
things.
You're doing so many things. How do you like? I mean, I feel like I'm doing a lot of things all the time.
Yeah.
Do you ever? I mean, has the pandemic forced some of those things? Well, I guess it has forced some of those things to stop, and then you're all of a sudden sitting there like, oh my gosh, like stillness.
All right. I mean, I guess when the clubs first started to close, I guess everyone's been forced into reflection, right? Because there's almost like this slowdown that's happened that's made everyone kind of reflect. And I definitely think this year things have already stopped. I haven't been able to DJ as much. There's been a lot of DJing to cameras and empty rooms, which hasn't been so ideal. But I think there's been a lot of reflection and made realizations of what actually is really important to me. So it's been both a blessing and a curse. But I think, yeah, I've definitely really come to the realization of what's really important to me.
I think same, actually. At first I was like, oh my gosh. Well, still now I'm like, oh, I can't see my friends. I can't hug my friends. I can't go and enjoy that community like feeling of being at a party, which is the reason why I go out, you know. But something like there's something nice to have come out of all the darkness in some capacity, I think. I've had very open conversations with friends. You know, we've really spoken a lot about like mental health and how to take care of each other. And I think there's been this like sort of love that's kind of come up out of it, where you really kind of appreciate those strong connections you have in your life. And that's lovely, you know. Exactly.
I guess we have, in case you're wondering what these cards are, there's a bunch of questions that we're going to ask each other, because when we were originally asked to do this, it was going to be a panel, and we're like, let's switch it up a little bit, add a little bit of spice, you know, add a little spice, a little bit of seasoning. So yeah, I guess I will ask you the first question that's on the list, which is, what was your biggest surprise / shock when coming into the music industry?
Okay, so if we're talking like way back when I came into the music industry, I think I was most shocked at how much there was to know as an artist, like from like just even the music making process. Like in the very early days, I was like, mixing is so crazy, then you have to get it mastered, and like that usually costs money, and then you have to distribute it, and there's so many options, and then you have to know about promotion and music law, and then eventually like your rights and copyrights and like sampling, and my mind was just like and then when I actually started working in the industry, I think I was so shocked at how many like, it sounds like basic, but I was so shocked at how many scenes and communities there were that were outside of my knowledge, because I was quite young and I was into electronic music, but not so much club music. And I started working in that sort of sphere. And I was like, like deep house and tech house and melodic house and this. And there were so many like boxes, and I found that like really frustrating. I'm like, oh, if I don't have this snare drum, then I can't be that genre. And I hated that, and I always wanted to like, I didn't know why everything had to be like classified, and it was really annoying. I was like, why can't we just be like anti-genre? Like, isn't that how things move forward?
Yeah. That's me, basically. I'm so anti-genre, and I think that's maybe when I came into the music industry, I was like super naive. I was just like, yeah, la 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 la, because all I'd experienced the music industry was as a consumer, just engaging in the music that I like through a whole multitude of genres, all the way from like jazz, classical music, rock, hip hop, R&B, up to electronic music, which kind of like came around when I was in my teens. And then entering it as a professional, both from working in like the more corporate sense, but also like working as an artist. I know I was kind of naive before it, and then you kind of realize that there's all these structures, all these businesses, as you say, processes. And considering it's been an industry that's been around for so long, like there's still so much that people don't know about it, both from the inside and the outside. So I guess for me, I came in wearing these rose-tinted glasses and then just realizing how murky it can be, but then also how much opportunity there is as well to kind of like shape it is amazing. But I guess for me, it's also about really bringing to light about kind of almost like wiping off the fog, or like wiping off the mists to allow people to see actually what the industry is really about. Obviously, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, totally.
So,
I was always shocked at how many people would like listen to music, because obviously I work for a streaming platform, but like so much music comes in, and I always assumed as a consumer that it would just be like uploaded into like the ethos, but actually like there's hundreds of people like listening to your stuff like every day, and then like so many people involved in the process of making that, putting them in playlists and things like that. You would think that it's just like blip blip, but it's not. It's like a full thing.
Yeah.
So
a whole ecosystem. A
whole ecosystem. So as a DJ and a creator and a producer with some songs that no one's allowed to hear yet, how have you stayed creative, and how have you been creating during we're in lockdown? So
to be fair, like at the beginning, I mean, we're almost a year into this pandemic now, and at the beginning I almost had this sense of panic, being like, oh my gosh, because even just before the pandemic hit, I'd already taken the decision to move to part-time in my at that point full-time job, to really have like some extra time to focus on the creation process. And then the pandemic hit, and I was just so unmotivated. Like I think at the beginning I was in denial about it. I was like, yeah, let me watch this like video on like how to construct Ableton, or how to really do X, Y, and Z, and just watching loads of tutorials. And then like, okay, but before I start producing, I need to get this keyboard, I need to get this audio interface, and just like really longing out the process of actually just sitting down and making music. And then from that, I think every mistake that you could make as a person starting out to make music, I made it. Like I was putting pressure on myself. I was setting dead like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna start to learn. I'll release something by like August. I'll give myself 6 months to like make an album from scratch, right? I downloaded thousands of plugins that I had no idea how to use. I was completely overwhelmed by like sound banks. I was like super intimidated by all my amazing producer friends who are making sick music. I was just like, every mistake was...
But you can spiral when you're at home, like in your apartment, you're like, I have to do this, I have to do this. Right. And then you're like, oh.
Right, and I guess also lacking that, I mean, maybe for some people with the pandemic, that was inspiration. But for me, it was like anti-inspiration. I was so uninspired. And I mean, I put all my inspiration into baking banana bread.
Well, I mean, that's something.
It was something. And it was, honestly, it's phenomenal.
I put mine into eating banana bread.
Amazing.
I found it difficult too, I think at first I had this big slump in inspiration. I was like, I don't care about music. There's so much going on in the world right now, and I feel like that demands my attention, and making music about myself felt selfish in a way, and I felt really stuck. And then over time, I slowly started to come out of my my head a little bit, and obviously like it's difficult for me like just not to make music. So it was difficult to like the creative process was different for me. Like obviously I couldn't go to a recording studio, and I'd worked on some like classical pieces as well with like actual orchestras, and I mean obviously I couldn't film an orchestra, record an orchestra, so I had to like work with a lot of people online that I just met, and it was this forced digital situation of trying to do something that I would generally be like, no, it has to be done like this, and it worked out really well, and I was very surprised. So yeah, it definitely pushed me to be creative in new ways.
Okay, kind of leading on from that, I guess. How do you see technology evolving during this time? Because I guess a lot of the stuff, like you mentioned, is being done online now. So we've seen the growth of Zoom and all the other like online meeting platforms. Like, but in a more general sense, how would you see technology evolving?
I mean, I would like to see technology evolve to create a deeper sense or more intimate relationship between artists together or artists to fans. I feel like with everything going on, especially as music creators, like your fans and the people that follow you and listen to your music and support you become like really valuable, and all of a sudden, I mean, not that I have a lot of fans, but you start really, you value that relationship a lot more, and I would like to see technology make that less faceless and more, this is like really abstract, more faceless, and just have a more intimate, does that kind of make sense?
I guess so, yeah. It's like a almost more personality to it, more of a connection.
How do we connect people in ways that are more meaningful when they can't actually have physical interactions, or music can sometimes feel like you're listening to something but you don't really connect with the people that are listening to it. How do we marry that together? Yeah.
For me, I feel like, I mean, I also have like this secret, not so secret, I love it because I'm obsessed with science, and my favorite genre is science fiction and dystopian futures. So in my mind, I'm like, yeah, well, obviously the robots are going to take over, and like the music industry is going to evolve so that my CEO is going to have like some AI forcing like his whatever. But I also agree. I feel like there's, it's in this way, technology has evolved to provide this sense of connection, but at the same time, it's almost a disconnect as well. Yeah. When you look at social media as a prime example, it was formed as this, all these platforms are formed as a way for people to connect, which is something that has really benefited me in my career. But at the same time, these screens that kind of replace that in real life communication has really disconnected people as well. So I would love to see technology evolving in a way that kind of facilitates connection and doesn't produce this disconnect. But I don't know if it's possible, to be honest.
I mean, I think, funnily enough, I work with a lot of very young artists that are like 15, 16, and I feel like this isn't a problem for them.
Yeah.
They're like, most of their crew and their community of like genres or whatever, they've never met IRL,
Yeah.
and the pandemic actually heightened their visibility and their impact because they knew how to work it, just because technology is ingrained in them.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm a bit jealous of that. I'm like, that's so cool.
And it's funny because I was saying to my mum over Christmas that I have some people around the world that I've literally never met in real life, but I would consider them good friends. I'm like, I know they're sound people, like I would vouch for them.
Yeah.
And I think in that sense, in a way, we're able to connect with so many more people, but it's also overwhelming at sometimes as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, so let's ask a fun question. What's the craziest or strangest thing that you've done during this pandemic or during lockdown?
Wow, I feel like I've become a new person during lockdown. I mean, I've been missing the club. So I mean, I would definitely recommend this to everybody. Having little dance parties in your apartments while you're away. I've been obsessed with homeware, so I've been buying up loads of furniture, and I've installed loads of different coloured light bulbs around my room.
Nice.
And sometimes I just have like a little strobe party and just bash out whether it's some trance or whether it's just some of my 16-year-old playlist with with like Paramore and like music. Honestly, it's a very cleansing process. I would definitely recommend.
That's nice.
Yeah, I think that's, other than that, I've just been, I don't think it's so strange, but just spending a lot of time in nature, or maybe being from London.
That's nice.
I'm like, what?
Love nature.
Leaves, grass? Who would have thought? You know, but
oh my
it's
gosh.
definitely a flip. What about you?
Strangest thing. Well, maybe it's not strange. Like at the beginning, I started like renovating my apartment, and then I got like tired of it halfway through, and was like, there's like a wall half painted, and then I got like a ton of like exercise equipment, and then was like, oh, like it's taking up so much room.
Right.
And then probably the like strangest thing, which I look back and laugh now, like the very first wave when I was just really like over it and demotivated, I was like literally just wearing, it sounds like so terrible, I was literally just like wearing tracksuits every day, like working at home. And then there's one day I had to go out and get some like eggs and coffee in the morning, and I was in my pajamas, and I was like, ugh. And I just put on like a jacket and went to the supermarket in my pajamas, and people were looking at me like,
nice.
And then I was like, have I reached that point already? So I think that was the maybe a low point.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess all things considered, like I'm team pajamas and coat.
Okay, cool.
For the supermarket.
And also, like, I got really into like old music that I was listening to. I was been listening to like Brandy.
Yeah.
And I was just in my house, like making breakfast. So yeah, just reminiscing on stuff.
Me too. I discovered Japanese new age music, which is amazing.
I love like retro Japanese.
Yeah, like
amazing.
Takeshi Kakubo or something like that.
So
like,
good.
I'm like wind chimes.
You're just
water
like,
running.
yes.
I feel cleansed spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally.
I've been playing that too. I love that.
Yeah, it's really, really fun. I mean, kind of leading on from that, how would you say that the pandemic has changed you?
I think it's forced me to appreciate moments of stillness. And, you know, I'm always doing so many things and juggling so many things. And it's forced me to learn how to exist in silence. And it's made me more like, you know, like I've started like doing meditation. And I feel like it's made me more open and grounded me a little bit. I mean, obviously it's very frustrating, but I feel like it's made me a little bit more sensitive in a nice way. Yeah, what about you?
I would definitely say I've definitely become more introverted, as bizarre that may seem, but I have always like been on the border of kind of like being introverted and extroverted. I think that's honestly why I love DJing, because it's like I can be at the party, I'm providing the moves, but I actually don't really have to talk to anyone. Like if anyone tries to talk, I'm like, just let me do this blend, like, and I can be away from it. But I definitely have, having been forced to be in these kind of like isolated situations, it has made me realize how much I love my own company. Like I
mean,
I just
for real,
love
right?
chilling, getting home, whipping my trousers off, like getting into bed, popping the projector on, living my best life.
Making 20 cups of tea.
Exactly. Like don't have to answer to anyone. So I've definitely become way more introverted in that sense. But then I think also one of my biggest realizations is how much I need to protect my own peace. So
yes.
I think over the course of 2020, the year that shall never be mentioned,
never again.
I made some realizations, transitions, I finished projects, left projects, started projects, and all with the kind of basis of realizing that I just need to feel good with myself, you know? Like I need to focus on my peace. It's not about what everyone else thinks, it's about what's most important to me. So I think before if it hadn't been for the pandemic, I would have been running at breakneck speed, finishing like just doing project after project after project, traveling, touring for DJing, without coming to the realizations that actually I need to feel good. It's not about anything else.
And you have to protect this is the one thing my friend and I were talking about. You have to protect your energy. You know, give your energy to so many people. Sometimes you forget to you need to save some for yourself. And I've been thinking about that too.
Yeah, for sure.
So wholesome.
Okay, let's do another fun question.
Okay. What
club and what about clubbing do you miss the most?
Well, I'm not going to say Berghain. I don't know if I miss like the clubs specifically, but I miss the parties, and I miss a lot of the queer parties. I would go to things like Button. I miss Buttons. I hate that we can't go to Whole Festival and stuff like that. I think I miss those events that gave me a sense of community and where there was a fun, uplifting spirit. And there are many of those, there are many parties like that in Berlin, and I miss miss feeling like that sense of connectedness to my community and to the greater, dance music community, if you will. But maybe not one club. I never was that person that would, well, maybe once every few months I would have like an angry week and I'd want to go and be like, yeah, I'd stomp it out. Really mad. But generally I was more like, yeah, like happiness. So maybe not one club, but I miss the community spirit and the feeling of being able to connect with people through music in a physical sense. What about you?
I am going to say Berghain. As cliche as it sounds, I used to roast everyone. I used to be like, oh my God, there's people that go every weekend. Like, come on, guys. But literally, I'm gagging for it. Like,
I am too, just quietly.
Just quietly, obviously there's a lot of other clubs and other, not even clubs, but more party series, promoters and event series that I miss. Like that kind of like euphoria of connecting with people that are similar to you. Being behind the booth, I miss just like, when you have a track and you're just like, you know what, I just know that the crowd is going to go off with this track. You just like have this like inner smile of like, yes, this is going to do it. And then just seeing that joy.
Yeah, that connectedness. That connection.
Yeah. And like, even just like, I don't know whether, are you familiar with wheel up culture? It's quite when you're playing a track,
of course, yeah.
Right, like just the feeling of getting that kind of like wheel up with just know everyone's like, losing their minds on that music, and just also kind of being that facilitator of kind of bringing, since I'm not playing my own music, I'm playing other people's music, bringing that and then like being able to give that to a crowd and just knowing that connection.
Having that synchronicity all together, like feeling that, riding those waves together,
I don't know. I think we're lucky in Berlin in that clubbing is such an integral part of the city, and I think to a certain extent the local government realizes that, and there is some support, at least in comparison to some of the other European cities.
Absolutely.
And Western, I guess, global cities that I have friends in who've told me what's going on. But at the same time, I don't know, like I read a story the other day that clubs are the first to close, last to open, end of 2022. I don't know, I don't know how it's going to be, but...
I mean, that's the thing. I don't know how it's going to be. I don't know how... even like beyond clubs, I just don't know how, like, a community, like those special things that make up our community in any aspect, how some of those things are going to survive, and that really worries me. But it's made me like more conscious of maybe like how I spend my money or what I focus my time on, which is maybe a good thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to ask the next question?
Oh, go on. Why not? So here's a big one. What do you think's next for the music industry? Like, is something going to change? What needs to change?
From like a social perspective?
From a social perspective, or maybe let's go with social perspective.
Okay. I mean, for me, what I'd like to see, it's difficult because I think, because I kind of like sit on the cusp of both underground music and also kind of like the corporate music industry. And I see that there's so much exchange that could happen to kind of like uplift the underground community with resources. Also, I think there's a lot from the corporate music industry to learn. It's difficult because I think the corporate music industry has to recognize that like even though what we do is like really uplifting and it really brings joy to people like globally, obviously it's rooted in capitalism, and a lot of the systems that exist in capitalism like oppress marginalized communities and stuff like that. So I think that there has to be this kind of like acceptance from the corporate music industry to kind of recognize that and what they do and uplift those communities. Obviously, I would love to see the fall of capitalism, but at the same time, I've got bills to pay. So I think that there is this middle ground. I personally think there's this middle ground. I know there's a lot of other people that don't agree, which is perfectly fine.
I mean, I totally agree. I think that in corporate, for corporate music, I think representation matters more than ever before. And I think that for companies, you need to have that representation and diversity at every level, including starting at the top, and that it's not enough anymore to just be a diverse company. If you hire diverse, you need to, those people's stories and voices and opinions need to filter down through into the DNA of what you're doing. Otherwise, you're just being diverse for face value, and that's not diversity.
Exactly.
And by doing that is how then you very naturally support all those communities.
Exactly. And I think also community support doesn't have to just come monetarily as well. I think it can come through resources, whether that's through mentorship schemes, whether that's industry access, workshops, even just providing space for people to exist. And I think also companies need to realize that it shouldn't always be an exchange for something. It should be almost a charitable thing. It shouldn't, people shouldn't have to exchange their identities and being like, yeah, I'm like the female or like trans or non-binary face of this, just in order to be able to get resources.
Yeah, people shouldn't be tokenized just for resources. Absolutely not.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
What are we getting into?
Maybe a fun question.
Yeah. I think maybe not fun, but maybe pensive.
Ooh, pensive.
What advice would you give to your pre-pandemic self?
Slow the hell down. You don't need to do everything. You don't have to prove yourself to anyone. You know, you don't have to do a million projects and put pressure on yourself to always be creating and moving and doing. That being able to do nothing is also perfectly fine, and you need to like be calm enough within yourself to be able to do that. Yeah, you don't have to putting so much. Everyone puts, especially in this industry, puts so much. Like you were saying, I'm going to release things by then. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. Well, hey, we're in a pandemic. This is a stressful time. It's an emotional time. You have to be kind. You have to be kind to yourself first.
Absolutely.
That's what I would tell myself.
Absolutely.
What would you tell yourself?
Definitely that. I was running at breakneck speed, and it was overwhelming. And even just realizing how burnt out I was when the pandemic hit, I was like, okay, I need to relax. But I would also tell myself that actually, you don't have to solve every problem. Like, I think, particularly coming as a marginalized identity and representing POC, but also being a woman as well, I felt like there's all these problems that I need to fix, and particularly within the underground community and the marginalized communities, these kind of like grassroots collectives, that we have to fix everything. And I think sometimes that can cloud your own judgment, this need of, okay, everything needs to be solved.
Yeah.
And it also means that you're not looking at some of your own internal problems that need to be done. And
absolutely.
You're almost sacrificing your internal peace because you feel like you need to solve everything. And this was one of my biggest realizations in the pandemic, and making choices, for example, to leave collectives that I was part of, to put to rest projects that I was working on that weren't serving me. And now I just feel amazing.
Oh,
I mean,
so
okay,
good.
it's January, so there's like limits to that amazingness. I could do with some sun maybe, but like just realizing that actually I should focus on myself and also what's important to me, instead of always trying to solve everyone else's problems, for sure.
That's really lovely.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's all working out.
Me too. What would you say? What other questions?
Like, we're raced through the questions.
Smash through.
Here's a fun one. So obviously everyone's doing Zoom calls because we can't see anybody. Have you had any like strange experiences or done anything outrageous?
I once got my hair done. I had a hairdresser come over. Sorry if any of my bosses are watching this. I was in a Zoom call, and I just like turned my camera off, claimed that there was internet connection issues, and then just told the hairdresser like, just be whatever. And then just got a full, like, literally came out, had the meeting, had an afro before, meeting finished, like literally just like 20-inch braids, like transformation, you know?
That's
I feel like it's
amazing.
like the utilization of time well spent, you know? What about you?
I have generally like nothing aside from like, silly backgrounds and stuff, but I did have one company meeting where I had to we had like an all hands, and I had to present to like hundreds of people, all the officers. And then I, just before maybe 10 minutes before, I was like, oh my God, they're gonna see into my apartment. It has to look like hot, like Instagram worthy hot. And so I got like all the lights and like lamps, and I was trying to like light it like a set, except I went too overboard, and I had like a sad light for like the white, and I had like this, these like lights you get at the chemist that the red lights that you put on to like when you've got sore muscles and stuff.
Is it?
Yeah, I had like one of those, and then I thought it looked really good, and I did the meeting, and then afterwards a few people like messaged me on Slack, and they were like, what was up with the lighting? And then it wasn't until then that I realized that I'd lit it like the original version of Suspiria. It looked like an 80s horror movie. And people were kind of thinking I was a bit mad, but...
I need to see footage of that.
Yeah, there probably is footage. Yeah, so I would say that's it, but I'm definitely looking forward to those IRL interactions.
Me too.
Once again.
I want to hug again.
I know, same here.
One day we'll be able to hug each other.
I know, or like shake hands at least.
Right, but we have the foot
do the
bump.
foot thing. It's so weird.
Cool.
Oh, it's been so nice talking to you today and getting to know you.
And getting to know you too.
Onwards and upwards,
Onwards
yeah.
and upwards. And also thank you Factory Berlin and Beats by Dr. Dre for hosting us.
Absolutely.
As well. And yeah, maybe one day we'll be able to dance together as well.
Let's do this in a club again soon.
But or maybe in the meantime we can have a Zoom call, have the strobe lights. You can
Okay.
have your
I'll play
Harriet,
Brandy
your
and you can...
right? And then we can just.